You see our boy Coleman, Coleman Hughes. So basically, if people don't know Coleman Hughes, he's the bro, dude.
Yeah, he's
plays in the Cellar Band and is a super smart, intellectual dude. And we've hung out with a bunch. I'm a big fan of Coleman.
Yeah, I like Coleman.
And he's like one of those super smart intellectual dudes. And I think his kind of shtick was he was like really young for it. I think now he's kind of like 30 or something.
Yeah.
At the time when he kind of popped on the scene, he was like crazy young for kind of how smart he was.
Okay.
But he's actually like a bro and funny too. I don't think people know the extent to which he's like a cool, funny guy.
Yeah.
Because he's so soft spoken. But I've hung out with him for like, nights and hours at a time. And he's he's actually like hilarious, like a G, right?
Okay.
But he did this speech for TED, and it was basically saying, I think color blindness is better than always everyone being looked at as the race as the predominant characteristic. And he kind of went into how you could, when different immigrants and different ethnicities see it different. He also kind of went into it's hard for people to be friends when he goes when anyone who's ever been in an interracial relationship or friends with anyone that's not the same skin color as them knows that the longer that you've been friends with, and generally over a couple hours, the less someone's race matters, blah blah blah, right?
For sure.
Which is good. And then he said, but I think the thing that he said that in his talk that was a pretty good description, because it was actually a kind of like actionable solution, is he basically said there are inequalities, but you need to address them at other levels other than the meritocratic finish line. And he kind of went into the blind violin seminars.
Okay, yeah.
So he was kind of like, there are places to fix them, but by fixing them at a finish line that is completely meritocratic,
yeah.
He's kind of said that makes things worse. That's kind of like his
which that makes sense. Yeah, because you're correcting it at the very end. It's like he's basically saying like, let's fix like the education system. So like,
yeah, there's like a million. His predominant thing was they're all become really, if you're saying this race, what you're really saying is this neighborhood or this income group or this school. Like, I think whatever, and that was kind of his hypothesis. But TEDx has kind of been infiltrated by this kind of stuff, right? Probably the guy that giving seminars at this thing, right? Mm-hmm. So they've had like 3 or 4 scandals where someone dared to, say something pretty, basically the Prime Minister of France is saying something pretty reasonable, right?
Yeah.
So their whole thing was being ideas, and then they've just completely got away from that and became an activist organization like anything else, right?
Yeah.
So he essentially was going to do this talk, and then he did the talk, and they didn't want to air it because it essentially
on YouTube.
Yeah, they're gonna. He gave a talk and they give the talk and then they air they do it live.
Okay.
And then he said most people liked it, but there was a couple people that work for TEDx that were like having a meltdown over it.
Nice.
Basically being, in their mind, he's black too, right?
Yeah,
so
of course. Yeah. That's the biggest issue for them. It'd be easy if he was white. That would be an easy decision.
They don't seem to care. Saying a black guy's a white supremacist these days, right? Yeah, they're pretty quick to the draw to throw that one around, right? So essentially, what happened with Coleman is the people that work at TEDx were having like a meltdown over it, and they're so hurt, right?
Yeah.
That he dared to say that maybe we shouldn't look at race nonstop, right?
Yeah.
And then, which I guess I was actually thinking about. I think I had a good point last night when I was trying to sleep.
In your brain.
Well, I get why people. If you think of why these, obviously, why are they having meltdowns? It's like, it's not just because they're sensitive babies. If you think about telling someone like an idea that dispels their entire ideology,
of course,
I feel like it's the equivalent of telling someone like their girlfriend's fat.
Yeah.
Like she may be, but it's like fighting words.
Yeah.
You're basically saying, you know what I mean? If you could tell like a friend of yours, you go, your girlfriend's disgusting. Like as true as that may be, it's like it's attacking like their whole core
for sure. And that's like a big, piece of their
income
world, and and their worldview, where they're just like
if his idea caught on, they're out of business.
Yeah, for sure.
You're the health minister saying tobacco is good, and there's studies about to put that under.
And they're currently benefiting from that system where like
it's their whole deal
that everybody believes that. So if everybody stops believing it, then
you're the Reiki massagist after someone's doing a TED talk about how Reiki massage is fake, and you're just like, we got to put a stop to this bad boy.
Yeah, total scam.
Yeah, and you're like, we can use our Reiki to stop the talk because that's what they can use their ideology that he's trying to dispel to stop him from speaking.
What do they call him, an Uncle Tom or something?
I don't know.
Someone
if they
says
said
that,
that.
Oops.
Yeah, I don't know if they said that, but I'm sure that they there was some of that shit getting thrown out there, right? Well, anyways, then the TEDx, the leader of the whole organization is kind of. He's just like a tech guy that feels, it kind of seems like he's normal, but he's just, these guys got him whipped. You know what I mean? He's the classic, like 50, he's probably 55, I'm guessing. Yeah. I just think, well, let's say he's 50. Let's say he's 45 to 55.
Okay.
And he's probably been a normal tech guy his whole life. 6 years ago, this stuff started hitting him hard. He thought he could ignore it. It just started, bubbling up. Now he's just like, his whole staff's got his nuts in a vice, right?
Yeah.
So this guy, and he didn't fight it every step of the way. Now he's
like what Twitter was like.
Yeah, it's the guy that his girlfriend's, bullying him around, and then on the last step where you can't do anything, being like, I'm putting my foot down, so he can't.
Lip quivering. I'm putting my foot down now.
I'm having a beer with Todd tonight, right? You're bullied. You're bullied into submission, right?
Yeah.
So this guy's kind of, he's on the phone with his other tech bros, being like, "Yeah, buddy, you think I like this?" That's my synopsis, and I would bet everything that it's right. Then he goes back to work, and he has to sit there while he has, he has a weekly meeting with his people about why too many white guys are in power, and he has to be like, we're the worst,
Yeah.
So they made a deal with Coleman, essentially saying that they wanted to put a tech at the end of his video. They're like, we need to put like essentially like a warning, which is going to be a full discussion about why he might be wrong, like a debate where they show the other side of after his talk, which is, by the way, super like an intellectual talk, right?
Yeah.
Not at all crazy. And then he was kind of like, no, I'm not letting you kind of act like my idea is this insane thing when it's pretty normal. So then he sort of got them to agree that they were going to put a debate on his talk like a week later, and the employees are huffing and puffing, but this is the deal they came up with. And then when it came out, they basically didn't publicize it. They put it on their website, but they kind of like,
they snuck it in.
They snuck it in, and it was getting all these less views because they basically, and then on YouTube it did pretty good, but on all the other places, like they're, I'm just making this one up, but stuff like, they didn't really put it on the newsletter,
Yeah, of course.
So then some people started to notice this. He sort of, felt like they reneged on his deal at this point, and he kind of started doing press about like, screw this,
screw Ted.
And the point of the matter is it blew up way bigger than it would have.
Oh, that's great.
So them like, it's kind of a cool thing to see that like people being a baby over like the ideas they don't want to hear is really making them way bigger.
Yeah. Also, TED is the ideas place.
Well, it was the ideas place.
The whole deal is like, here's the ideas, people.
Well, they are the ideas place, but it is the very specific set of ideas that you've heard a million times.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no new ideas. It's just like repackaged ideas you've heard every fucking professor say in 2014.
Yeah, basically.
That's the whole deal, right?
Yeah.
They're not new ideas. They're just, everything that you hear
something becomes like, the prevailing idea, and then someone wants to counter it with some sort of...
Well, there's no countering.
No, apparently not, Coleman.
So anyways, it was just funny to see that when these people try to stop an idea, I guess the areas where people don't have to play this game are big enough that it just gets bigger now.
Yeah, for sure.
If they just kept their mouth shut, this whole thing probably just would have like drizzled under the radar. Now it's like a scandal that the boss is involved in and it's kind of one of those things where because this guy let his thing, you have to like, put your foot down always.
Yeah.
Because if you just let them push it, and now he's like in these bigger scandals, and
they probably felt like
no one wants to give him money because they're just an activist organization.
They probably felt like they couldn't not oppose it though. Like they're like we have to oppose this, otherwise we're just like agreeing with it. I'm sure that's how they thought. They were like, we have to cause a stink about the releasing this, otherwise that's us agreeing with it.
But if you say, hey, we're a platform, people will share ideas, shouldn't you say, hey, we
don't believe all of these ideas.
Well, you should say there is no we. We're a collection of 100 people that all have different. I mean, maybe some of the people at our work agreed with it, some people didn't. Like, you should that should be the thing. You go, there should be no workplace where you go, we as a fucking 300 person collective all think this.
Yeah,
be like, what kind of insane workplace does every single person think the exact same thing on every single thing? It's like
Foxconn.
What kind of fucking dystopian,
Yeah. No, I don't know.
Foxconn.
Foxconn,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
What are you like working on a sweatshop in North Korea?
Yeah.